Come on!
Oh, welcome back, everybody. It's Wednesday.
And we're on the beach.
That we are. We're nearing the end of 2020,
Yeah.
Mr. Salib, but we're also halfway through a big week for us. Curious how your week's been going so far?
It's been going well. Just getting more and more excited by the day for this episode. I was, you know, with the bi-weekly special episodes. These are a little more extra special for us as well.
I agree.
Then, boom, on Thursday, our big announcement. Then, boom, on Friday, we got a pay-per-view preview. One of my favorite weeks of the podcast so far.
Yeah.
Action-packed.
I cannot disagree with you there. It's feels like it just gets more and more fun to do these.
Oh, yeah.
And that decision by us to move these special episodes bi-weekly, I feel like is like kind of working. It's like making us, because I don't want to say we weren't unmotivated to do them before or anything like that, but it's just, it makes us more excited to get to that Wednesday.
And we have more time to like prepare more things. Because when we were going boom, 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 then there's less time between recordings. And so now we're just like, we got time.
And this month in particular, I think, fully shows like the benefit of it, because the month of December is our basically 2020 year in review.
Yes.
So,
perfect.
Again, you guys, you probably know this by now, but today's episode is a little extra special. That's because today we're doing part 1 of our 2020 year in review. A look back at Fight Island.
Yes.
We believe Fight Island deserves to have an episode dedicated to it. Technically, this would be the second time we've dedicated an episode to Fight Island. We did the documentary that was on Fight Pass, which was great. That gave you more of that behind-the-scenes look. We talked a lot about the fighters they focused on, a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Now we can talk about more of our experience with Fight Island, kind of how we saw things playing out as someone we are not behind-the-scenes people, as much as we'd like to be.
Yes, true.
We simply saw things play out in front of our eyes, so it's kind of like, we were talking about it all the time. Wish we were doing the podcast back then.
I know. We started literally a month after.
Yeah. So, and really today we're also going to kind of get into our 2020, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Because, let's be honest, 2020 is, maybe it's not the kind of year you want to look back on fondly for a lot of people. Because I don't know if anybody can really walk away from this year and go, that was a great year.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those years you just got to find the small silver linings, In
a lot of ways, yeah.
Find those diamonds in the rough.
Yeah. But I think we'll start kind of with our experience with 2020. Do you want me to start or do you want to start?
Yeah, let's just flow off each other here, but go ahead, take it away.
Okay. So 2020, it's been interesting. We kind of, starting out, I was working 2 jobs back once we got to like January, February.
When things were normal.
COVID hits. I lose one of my jobs. And then the other job kind of, for the next couple weeks, it's kind of unsure because I was working for the university. At the time, they hadn't committed to sending everybody home for the whole semester, and really my job is not necessary if there's no kids on campus. Well, then I lose that job too, so I'm just kind of chilling at my house with one of my roommates, and we're literally just quarantining for months, not sure what's going to happen. It's a story like most people probably had. I mean, I just wasn't making any income. I don't know if it was the same for you, because by this point you had graduated, but I wasn't eligible for a stimulus check.
Right, yeah.
Which sucked.
No, I was not either.
that was pain.
Yes.
But once the summer hit, you got to find work eventually. I ended up getting a job at a gas station back home. So I go back, move in with my dad for the summer, work there. Really, during this quarantine, when it came to the fighting, this is a good way to tie this in. I was watching more fights than I ever have.
Yeah.
How I have my spreadsheets.
Your spreadsheet, I was about to ask.
Probably going into quarantine, I had seen probably like half of the UFC pay-per-views, maybe a little more than half. And mind you, I'd been doing that for like 3 years at that point.
It's been a process.
From then until August, I watched the other 100.
Yeah, I remember when we were discussing starting the podcast, like officially, finally, and rather than just talking about it.
Yeah.
It was that night we went out to eat at B-Dubs, I think, and that's when you talked about, oh yeah, I finished all of them. Now I'm starting all the fight nights.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, man, that's awesome.
So it slowed down by this point because now, as I'll get into, life's gotten a little bit more back to normal in some ways.
Yeah.
But at the time, that was all I could do. That's all I wanted to do, really. So, and then obviously once the UFC came back, that was huge. As like, it's like, oh, now I get to watch current fights and old ones. Summer worked that job, came back, actually got an internship that started in August. That was a huge deal because they kind of, for a few months, they weren't sure if they were even going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm in like June, and I have no idea if I'm taking classes in August and graduating in December, or if I'm going to be on internship and pushing back my graduation to May. So, definitely a stressful time.
Oh, yeah.
But then they end up offering me the position, which, shout out to that company. I won't say it on air, but it's been a great run there. And that's kind of been my way to feel like I'm in some sense of normalcy again, is having an actual like job that feels like a career in a sense. And that was until about Halloween, right after Halloween, election week.
Yes.
I got COVID-19, as did you.
I was waiting for them to put the pieces together.
Maybe. One led to the other.
Yeah. But who am I to point fingers?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen. It more than likely was Noah.
It was definitely me that gave it to Dom.
But we had to do the podcast.
We did, and I didn't knowingly.
He didn't know. Yeah, exactly.
And I got it pretty bad. Yes. I don't want to say it was like near as bad as some people. It was just in comparison to a lot of the people I knew, like you, some of my roommates, things like that. I definitely had it the worst of everybody I knew. It probably put me out for like 3 days, basically, of just like 20 hours of sleeping. When I wasn't sleeping, like my body was just aching. It was not a fun time. I get cold sores real bad a lot of times, and I had like 10 of them pop up on my face at once. It was ridiculous. So for the next 2 weeks, life kind of goes back to feeling like I literally was quarantined in my room because I live with 4 other guys. So 2 of them got it as well, but the other 2 didn't have it. So we are literally locked in our room for
14
2
days.
weeks. And I have a pretty small room, so I was miserable. And it felt like I was not only quarantined again, it felt like it was even worse than it was when I was quarantined before. Mm-hmm. So then it was like kind of the normalcy kind of got stripped away. But 2 weeks go by, I'm able to go back to work. Kind of re-energized me a little bit. It was definitely like a
wake-up call?
I don't know if I'd call it a wake-up call, because some of that's kind of out of my hands at some point, but more so it was just, it made me appreciate it more, what that structure had really done for me, because leading up to starting working there, because even after they offered it to me, I wasn't 100% certain that they wouldn't cancel it at the 11th hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still stressing out, checking, Mike DeWine's updates all the time, things like that. Well, once I started, though, never really checked them again, and maybe to my detriment. But once I was able to go back to work, it's only been 2-3 weeks now. That was definitely nice. And then I was even offered a second internship starting in January. So again, shout out to that company.
Oh yeah, 2021 looking big for many reasons.
So 2020, all in all, when I explain it like that, like for what, considering how many people have had just bad years, how many companies have had these awful years, sports suck for the most part. I really can't complain. Like, I really made out pretty well in the end. Like, sure, I got COVID. I went a few months without getting paid. It was a struggle, but everybody was kind of going through that.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, for my career, like, I completely built my foundation.
Yeah,
so,
you finally got to secure that internship.
Yeah, and that led to getting a second
Mm-hmm.
one that I'll be doing in January. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's a year that I think I'm going to be able to look back on fondly.
It's memorable.
I mean, it's also when we started the podcast.
That's
I mean,
true.
all in all, I don't want to skip that over. I mean, we started this in August. If not for
this craziness that is 2020.
I don't know if we would have had I don't know if balls is the right word or just the...
Would it ever have even presented itself, though, as an option?
Because, I mean, the way it kind of came about was we got dinner, that dinner you were talking about, when I came back to BG.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, I spent all summer at home. You were here for the most part, I believe, weren't you? So then we get dinner at B-Dubs.
Turned into like an 8-hour
and then we went back to your apartment and we were just like, and like, again, this has happened multiple times, be like, why don't we just do a podcast?
This is 2 years in the making.
Yeah. And then you said it again and I went, why don't we?
And then we're like, wait, we're doing this.
So like, if I don't say that, which definitely there's got to be some sort of element of everything going on making it feel more plausible, or just more of like a fuck it, like why not?
Go out and do it.
Yeah, so I think in a lot of ways this year is definitely a year I can look back on fondly, which is weird to say. But I mean, a lot of the things I love to do happen. I mean, my career's kind of been started in 2020, and then my
passion,
the podcast was started in 2020. So all in all, at the end of the day, can't complain.
Given the circumstances.
Yeah. I'm curious, some of your...
I mean, really same boat. So, I mean, from my standpoint, I'm in a Division I collegiate ticket office. So we were, of course, in the heap of all of our events, January, February, all of our sports going on, essentially. And then March rolls around. That's when the sports start to die down, but it's also when, the postseason start, and we're hosting, like, high school basketball. So there's a lot going on, even though you're really close to being done for the summer as well. And then we literally go, it's a crazy story. We host events on Monday through Friday for high school basketball tournaments.
Right.
And Monday, sold out crowd. Big high schools, 5,000 people in the arena. Tuesday rolls around, family only. Just like that. Because the first cases got reported in Ohio, in Cleveland. So immediately that gets paused. Immediately our school that travels to Cleveland for the conference championship canceled. Conference tournament was then put to family only, I should say. Wednesday rolls around. High school tournament that we're hosting, done, canned, nothing.
It's crazy.
Conference basketball tournament that our team is going to, boom, canceled. As my boss gets in his car to drive to Cleveland because he had to be there and I was going to be here. As soon as he got in his car, boom, done. He never even got to leave the parking lot, and the tournament got canceled. And from there, we go into Thursday. We have a meeting on, like a full staff meeting. They say we're going to do this next week working remotely. We're just going to take 1 week, let it all kind of die down and see what goes on. And if you would have told me during that meeting that I would have went home, because I traveled home to just take a week with the family, because I go multiple months sometimes with the sports.
And for you might even, I know it's scary what's going on, like being told that, but for you it's probably like, oh, nice, I get a week to go home, because it was unexpected.
After the long season, so it's like, all right, we're going to take a week. Everything's going to get back to normal here. We're going to figure out what this whole virus is about. And if you would have told me then that I would have been at home from middle of March until the middle of July, I would have called you crazy.
Right.
And if you would have told me that we're sitting here halfway through December and virtually nothing's really changed, I would have called you crazy. But, I go home for what I think was going to be 1 or 2 weeks, spend some time with the family, come back. And, no. At home, start working remotely. All of our sports are called off. We go into the fall. We're limited to families only. So, thankfully, never, got cut out of a job or a paycheck.
Right.
Definitely just strange. But here we are now. Sports are going. Again, at least there's somebody in the arena to cheer on the athletes. And it's definitely different, but something unique, something I'll never forget. And again, the silver linings, we start our podcast here. I started grad school during all of this, actually, in May.
That's wild.
Of course, that's all remote, but still, I was planning to start it at some point after I finished undergrad. And then all this rolled around. I'm like, might as well just start it now, right? I mean, there's not much going on all summer.
Yeah.
So now, I'm about to be 5 classes deep in that and almost halfway done. And so, silver linings, really to anyone out there. I know it's been a shitty year for essentially everyone to some extent, but keep looking for the silver linings.
Yeah.
2020 is almost over. I know 2021 is still going to be weird.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to go into January and everything's back to normal, but hopefully things continue to get better. Things continue to progress. Everybody can come together. 2021 hopefully will be greater than 2020.
True. And to your point, it first felt real to me, this, COVID-19, because I had heard. I mean, I don't watch the news, truthfully. Excuse me, but I had heard about it, but it didn't feel real to me until the day after our fake Patty's Day that we have at Bowling Green. That's when Ohio State announced they were sending everybody home.
Yeah, that was the weekend before everything literally went shutdown mode. Yeah, I remember that.
Because I remember, basically, our St. Patrick's Day was during our spring break. So the students and the bars of Bowling Green decide to have that Saturday be fake Patty's Day. So everybody just celebrates it as if it's the real thing. So, I mean, that was a fun day. But I wake up that next morning and, I'm sitting there with some of my friends. And they're like, Ohio State just announced they're going online for the rest of the semester. It was like, what? And then I remember when the BG announced it, and it was just like, whoa. I remember being, so upset. Because it's just you knew that, a lot of my friends were going to be going. And it's selfish reasons in hindsight. But at the time, I'm just like, this can't be that bad, right? It can't be that bad. Mm-hmm. But it just progressively got worse and worse. And really, we're in December. Still hasn't got that much better.
No.
But yeah, to your point, I remember talking to my roommate who, since we were quarantined and we lived together, and I was like, hopefully by August this will all be smoothed over. That way the fall semester everything will be normal. Now you're looking at spring of 21, probably going to be much of the same as it's been for fall 2020.
You're essentially now looking at hopefully fall of 2021 will
be. And I hope that for those people that are really just ready to get done with this year and start fresh in their eyes, I hope they can reserve some of those expectations for 2021, because January is about to hit here soon, and it's probably still going to be much of what 2020 felt like.
We just got to roll with the punches.
Yeah, so for how long, who knows? I'm done making those predictions. It just bums me out after a while. But I think sports have always been a big part of our escape.
Yeah.
Even before pandemic, Well, that leads to why the UFC, we feel, has done such a great job, because it has been very much an escape.
Mm-hmm.
The only other sport that I think has even come close to kind of those same results was the NBA. And
the NBA did do a very good job.
But then, the first casualty was March Madness, completely scrapped. Then the MLB starts way late. You get a 60-game season. It just feels weird. You have a lot of weird. I remember I was trying to watch the Reds because they were supposed to be pretty competitive. And then I was looking around the league, and some of these players that were their batting averages were real low. It's everybody was. It was it just felt like a big asterisk season.
I feel like that's what it is for all sports.
Yeah, and then the NFL has been having some problems getting their season to even finish out. You're having like every week,
especially lately. Yeah.
Every week it seems like there's a game that's got to be postponed because you got upwards of double-digit players on a team.
Well, I think it really shows that like these bubbles, so-called bubbles, like is your most successful path.
Yeah.
Which is what the UFC has done.
Yeah.
It's what the NBA did. But nobody else, and the NHL did it. They don't get talked about enough.
Actually,
but the NHL
that's
did
fair.
do a fantastic bubble.
I'm not the biggest hockey guy,
yeah.
So that's why I didn't mention it. But actually, I heard that
they did a fantastic job.
I heard they did a really good job with theirs. They might have even done it better than the NBA, truthfully, because they kind of gave every team a chance to fight for a playoff spot and everything.
But I mean, outside of the the UFC and then NBA, NHL, we've seen that the sports that have not implemented some sort of bubble due to all the traveling and how all these sports work, there are issues that come up. Even in the UFC does, or well, essentially they don't do a bubble for the Vegas cards, and that's why we see issues with the Vegas cards.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Fight Island cards, everything almost went flawlessly outside of hiccups. Obviously,
things happen, but even right now, like college football just feels so weird.
I mean, bias here. We're Ohio State fans, and the biggest rivalry in college football, Ohio State versus Michigan, was canceled
today.
Canceled.
As we're recording this, it happened this morning.
Just unbelievable. Crazy.
Like, who would have thought? I mean, and I'm not saying it ain't for justified reasons. It's like, I mean, it's a selfish thing, but you're just like, it just takes the wind out of you almost. You're just like, man, like, never would have thought in my lifetime that I would go a year without being able to watch Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's happened. And now, like, I mean, Ohio State played 5 games this year. It's weird.
Yeah.
It just feels weird, That's the best way to put it, is like with sports, it's been a very big mixed bag, because some sports you just can't replicate that energy or that feeling you get without the fans.
Yeah.
Luckily, MMA has been probably the least compromised. And really, the NBA surprisingly didn't feel all that compromised. I hate the electronic fans, by the way.
I was about to say they did a good job of it.
Oh, I hate it.
Really?
I hate it because it's so delayed. It's just...
I wanted to be one.
I mean, that's fair because, who doesn't, who doesn't want to see their face up there? But it's just, like your delayed reactions. They're... I don't know. I don't like the electronic fans. I know... Some people feel the way you do, where they like it. I never did. But for the most part, the NBA did it right. Like you said, the NHL did it right. NFL, MLB, can't quite say the same. It just feels like everything has an asterisk to it. Besides, like, I don't think I'm going to look back and go, oh, well, if COVID didn't happen, the Lakers probably wouldn't have beat the Heat in the finals. I don't know. I still feel like that. I feel like that was warranted. With any of our title changes in the UFC, I don't feel like I'm going to look back and go, oh, well, if COVID hadn't affected camps and everything like that, then who knows what would have happened. I mean, sure, that's a factor, but it just feels uncompromised, the sport, for the most part. I think that's nice.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good way to segue here.
Oh, yeah.
It's done talking about ourselves.
Yeah, we did a good segue.
Yeah.
Went from personal into sports, now into our favorite,
right,
the UFC.
So now we're our look back at Fight Island, and it's going to start in the lead up, so kind of what we were just doing, and that starts with if we're talking just UFC here, because we've mentioned how all these sports,
cancel,
Yeah.
postpone, cancel.
So the UFC had an interesting run here, because what happened was UFC 248 happens, headlined by Adesanya versus Romero.
We don't talk about that one, but you know what we talk about? We talk about the co-main.
Weili Zhang, Joanna MJJ.
There you go.
The best women's fight of all time.
Yes.
So they should have had those flipped on the card, but
the last card with fans.
Yeah. So that happens.
What was that? March 7th, 2020.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks later is when we got put under quarantine.
Yeah, I mean, well, for the UFC that next week, March 14th, they're supposed to have a big event in Brazil, or a fight night in Brazil.
Well, they did.
Yeah. No fans.
Oh, right.
The first event without fans. Headlined by Charles Oliveira, who we're going to break down on Friday, and Kevin Lee.
Mm.
That was the first event without fans, and it happened, boom, just like that. And then from there, 6 week, no fights.
Yeah, so basically the biggest casualty of that being we were getting real excited because UFC 249 supposed to be headlined by Khabib Nurmagomedov finally defending his belt against Tony Ferguson.
May I add one more thing that we were excited about?
Yeah.
March 28th in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. We were supposed to
UFC
be
Fight Night.
We were supposed to be at a fight night.
Yes.
At the end of the month.
Yes.
Headlined by Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. You guys know how that fight went.
Mm-hmm.
Co-mained by Cody Garbrandt versus Rafael Assunção. Y'all know how that fight went.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get to go.
Yeah, we didn't get to see it.
Sad.
I just had to throw that in there. I forgot to mention it in the personal part.
No, I
but it plays into this.
Yeah,
so.
it's just, it feels so long ago.
Yeah. Listen, us here in Ohio, we don't get the luxury of many UFC fights. So when they come, we buy.
It was the first one since 203.
Yes.
And that
4
was,
years.
Yeah.
So we were sad.
Yeah, we were very excited leading up to it, and then it didn't happen. Disappointing. 249 was probably the biggest casualty, though, because of that main event. So, literally, as everything's going on, Dana is insisting that they will get it done and they will push through. At one point, even agreeing to hold the fight with, I believe, no fans at an Indian reservation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. California? Yeah.
Well, due to a lot of the pushback from all sides, I guess, ESPN steps in and asks Dana to step down on this one, stand down. So he does. So then we get 6 weeks, nothing, and that was hard.
Oh yeah. But little did we know,
because UFC always you usually know every Saturday for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
You got something.
Yeah.
And it's just nothing for 6 weeks.
But then you look at what they did, and you just think, during those 6 weeks, all the shit they were doing behind the scenes that no one had a clue about.
And really, that started right away, right after they announced they were canceling that card, because Dana did an interview with Brett Okamoto with ESPN, announced they weren't moving forward with that card.
That was originally supposed to be April 9th of 2020.
Yeah. So then he goes, I have secured an island. And Brett... and now it's hard to look back because we do have it.
Everyone watched that interview and went, huh?
And even Brett looked at him like, huh?
If he would have had water, he would have spit it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes, yes, an island. I've secured an island for all of our international fights.
And
then,
thus the mystery is created.
Thus the mystery.
Undisclosed location.
Yep.
Nobody has a clue.
Everybody wants to know, where is Fight Island?
Yes. It became the talk of all sports.
Yeah.
All sports at that time.
Yeah. Because
major headlining news.
What other sport could that be done?
Yeah.
You have a literal Mortal Kombat style island.
That's what people were thinking.
Or Bloodsport, the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie with the Kumite.
If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're looking at this picture, this is what I thought we were getting. And if you're not watching on YouTube, it's one octagon with a palm tree in the middle on a 1,000 square foot desert island in the middle of the ocean.
Literally island on the beach.
Yes.
We thought guys were going to be fighting in the sand.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was really the perfect way to announce it, because everybody's so sad about the cancellations, and he's just like, yeah, I've secured an island. Huh?
No need.
How do you say that so casually? And really, that a star was born that day, and its name is Fight Island.
Yes.
And God, what a marketing!
Oh, that star railroad in a lot of money for the
2020.
UFC.
Hey, for the UFC, when it comes to merchandise sales, probably by this point it's doubled 2019.
Oh yeah.
Because it had already beat it leading up to UFC 251.
I played a part in that. Shirt's hanging right there in the closet.
Nice. So we do end up getting fights back, but they don't start at Fight Island.
Correct. This is true.
So we start at UFC 249, gets rebooked, now headlined by Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson for the interim lightweight title. It's happening in Jacksonville. So Florida kind of is one of the states that during that time was, I guess, trying to be more lenient.
Mm-hmm.
So they end up going there, and they're insistent on they're going to have protocol in place, and they're like talking that protocol up huge. Talking about keeping guys safe, keeping guys, guys are going to have to stay locked in their rooms.
Multiple testing.
Well, basically the night before, it looks like this card might get canceled again.
I thought the whole thing was going down.
And I thought potentially we might not be seeing any fights for a long time after that.
Yep.
Jacare Souza scheduled to fight Uriah Hall. After face-offs, after he weighed in, he tested positive.
Yep. The first fighter that was tested as positive for COVID-19.
I remember our buddy Jake sent us the tweet, and he said, "Boys, this fight ain't happening. This card."
Yeah, I was walking upstairs with my phone, got the alert from ESPN, looked back before I was past the wall of the steps, and I said, "Jacare Souza just tested positive. This whole thing's going to get canceled, isn't it?" And I remember looking at my dad saying that to him. It was just vivid.
Yeah, so the whole next day, I'm nervous. I wait because I'm like, I want to pay the money right now, but I'm waiting just in case something happens. Luckily, I guess, nobody else tested positive besides his corner.
It was his whole corner, yeah.
Which, luckily, they've all recovered and been able to move on. Jacare about to fight this weekend, actually.
Tune in on Friday.
Nobody else tests positive. The event's able to move forward. Ends up being an awesome event.
Yeah.
But that's really not what we're talking about. Because then they have this nice run in Jacksonville. And then after that is when they moved to the Apex, correct?
Yep.
So they moved to the Apex. That's where UFC 250 happens, headlined by Amanda Nunes and Felicia Spencer. And then it's Fight Island time.
Yes, sir.
UFC 251, headlined by Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. 3 title fights. Below that, Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway 2. Below that, Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. It's a huge card. Then you even got Rose Namajunas and Jessica Andrade 2.
Mm-hmm.
Their first fight being for the title, even though neither of them held it at this point. It was a huge card.
Star-making performance by Amanda Ribas.
Yes. But the weekend before, we get our probably first major.
It was exactly, I think, 7 days out.
I mean, it was our first main event to be compromised.
Yep.
Gilbert Burns tests positive a week out.
As he was in Vegas.
Yeah.
In their hub, getting ready to fly to Fight Island.
Yeah. He's no longer able to fight for the title. So there's a lot of questions. Because it's like, okay, are we just going to move up Holloway and Volkanovski, or what are we doing? In steps
Street Jesus.
one of the biggest names in MMA, game bred Jorge Masvidal.
On 6 days' notice.
The 2019 Fighter of the Year in a lot of ways. He went from being a journeyman to being a household name that year.
Currently, in terms of active fighters, the biggest active fighter until Conor comes back in January.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And he steps in on 6 days' notice to fight Usman for the belt. So, going in, I can say that even though I was really looking forward to Usman Burns,
Still am.
yeah, I'm still hoping to see that fight, and I hope it does happen. However, I can't deny that when I heard Masvidal got the fight,
You didn't perk up a little in your seat.
yeah, I was very excited. I'm a big. I mean, loved Masvidal on his run. Still, the most shocking thing I've ever seen live was Masvidal's knockout of Ben Askren. That's still the most shocking thing I've ever seen live in a sport. My jaw was on the floor at that B-dubs. It was insane. So because of that, I love Masvidal, and I was very excited. Would you say the same?
Oh yeah, 100%. This was like the biggest fight to make at the time in the UFC.
Yeah.
This was the fight everybody wanted. It just didn't happen to play out because at the time, leading into this, Masvidal was holding out for bigger money.
Yeah, he was.
He got the bag.
You know he had to. Save the main event.
Shout out Hunter Campbell.
Yeah. That's one of the things we learned from that documentary is how integral Hunter Campbell was in making sure that deal went through. He said, "Do you want to see Masvidal in this main event?" I think it was to Dana. Dana's like,
Make
yes.
it happen.
And he's like, "All right, I'll get it done." Boom.
I'd like to see that check.
Yeah. That was a pretty penny.
I'd like to have that check.
But now we have our 5 fights, right?
Yep. God, what a card. Looking at it again. Ooh.
So we watched this together, actually.
Yep.
At your house back home.
Mm-hmm.
Me, you, JP, Jake, Big Dave.
Yep.
Maybe your mom and P make an appearance.
Yeah.
But I think I got to your fight I got to your house around, I don't know, it was like the second fight of the early prelims. The first fight that really stuck out to me was that headliner of the prelims, Jiri Prochaka, making his debut from Ryzen, where he had been a huge champion, knocking out Volkan Oezdemir in the second round in a very fun fight.
It's crazy they have that on the prelims.
It really is. And it was a fun fight, back and forth in that first round. Jiri getting that knockout. We still haven't seen him fight since. Haven't seen Volkan fight either. But that was, you knew that Jiri was for real.
Star-making performance.
Immediately put him into that top 6, 7, considering it was his debut in the promotion. And now he's scheduled to fight
it's Reyes in February.
Is that who it is? Okay, he's scheduled to fight Dominic Reyes. So if he wins that, man, I mean, you're looking at a title shot.
Mm-hmm.
So what a performance there. I just wanted to point that out because, I love me some Jiri. Then we go to our main card. We started with Amanda Ribas, the biggest favorite on the card.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was a minus 700.
800
over Paige Van Zant, who is one of the probably biggest names in women's MMA currently, or at this time, because now she's at bare knuckle. Say that 5 times fast. So the biggest favorite on the card, and I was, again, I wasn't necessarily watching every single fight night at this time. I mean, I was catching the majority of them, but I didn't have the incentive like I do now, to where it's like we're talking about on a podcast, to really make sure I watch every card every week. I didn't really know Amanda Ribas.
Oh, this was her coming out party.
Yeah, and I mean, she had fought twice before. It looked good. She beat Mackenzie Dern.
Yep. First person ever to
imagine
beat
that fight happening now.
Oh, I can't wait for the rematch.
Yeah. So here she is on her biggest stage, and again, I knew based on how big of a favorite she was, I was like, oh boy, because Paige, despite her star power, has kind of been a middling fighter. She's kind of been a 500 for that women's flyweight and strawweight divisions. Amanda made it look pretty easy. Wouldn't you say?
2 minutes, 22 seconds. Let me snap your arm real quick.
Yeah, hit her with that arm bar. Paige has had so many problems with her damn shoulders and elbows, everything. So that was a star-making performance for Amanda. It's kind of like easy to forget now because we haven't seen Amanda fight since, and so much has happened since UFC 251. I mean, the world of MMA moves so fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, she became a star that night.
Yeah, I mean, now she gets to fight
She
Michelle
was hanging
Waterson.
out. I mean, right after that, she was hanging out. She
she stayed there. Yeah,
when they had Hamzat sitting with Dana for Ortega Zombie. Well, they had her sitting with Dana right after this.
Yep.
So it's obvious they look at her like she's a big deal.
And now she's going to be on the main card of a Conor McGregor fight.
Mm-hmm.
So
and who's
if that
she
tells
fighting?
you anything, Michelle Watterson.
Yes, she is.
Kind of a big fight.
Kind of a big fight.
Yeah.
And then you get to that Namajunas Andrade
Fight of the night.
The fight of the night.
One of the best fights of the year.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? The women have shown out in 2020 now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Joanna Whaley. We got Jessica Andrade and Rose Namajunas 2. We had Angela Hill, Michelle Watterson, main event. That was an incredible fight.
That was a great fight.
There's been some great female fights this year.
Even
this one was awesome.
Even JDR and who did she?
Pena, Juliana Pena.
That was
really
a fun fight.
Yeah.
I mean, probably a step below those, but still, women putting. I mean, even Home Aldana was a fun fight to watch.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, like you're right in that way that the women have really showed out this year, and this fight was easily fight of the night. It was a great fight. I mean, in a lot of ways, it went the way I thought it would go. The first time they fought, Rose was champ.
She was dominating the fight.
She was dominating, piecing her up. I don't know if Andrade's going to be able to get it to a decision. She might have been done. I mean, she was being pieced up. Then their clinch. Andrade with that power picks Rose up and slams her essentially on her head.
Yeah, knocked out cold.
Andrade's new champ. And it felt immediately like, did Andrade really deserve to be the champ?
And then she lost it in 42 seconds.
To Whaley, who's an animal. And I love Andrade. I'm not gonna talk down on her like you just did. But
I was just saying what happened.
No, I hear you. But coming into this rematch, it felt like it was going to be...
So glad they booked the rematch, too.
Yeah, it felt like it was going to be more of the same. It was going to be Rose piecing her up. And then the only chance Andrade had was to basically use her power.
And she did, to break Rose's nose.
Well, for 2.5 rounds, or 2 rounds, I guess, Rose, I would say, was definitely getting the better of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly winning. I wouldn't say it was near as one-sided as their first encounter. That 3rd round, though, Andrade came back
Turned
big.
it on.
Yeah, and she bloodied up Rose, broke her nose, like you said. Her eye was all swollen and black afterwards. They went to war, man.
It was awesome.
And then it ended up being a split decision. I wonder if Chris Lee was judging that one.
Oh. Anyway, on to
Rose gets the win, though, and deservedly so. It was a clear 2-1.
Can't wait to see her fight Whaley.
And now she looks like she's going to fight Whaley. Andrade, this was her last fight at strawweight. Yeah. She moved up to flyweight.
And dominated a number 1 contender.
Caitlin Chukagian. Now she looks like she might be next for Valentina.
Yeah.
God, I can't wait for both of those fights.
Yeah, those are awesome.
2021 women's fighting looking like it's about to be just as good.
Yes.
So then we get to our first title fight. And this one had some controversy to it. Because Peter Yan going up against Jose Aldo for the bantamweight belt. This was the first bantamweight title fight after Henry Cejudo had announced he was retiring at UFC 249. Peter Yan deserved to be in this title fight. But Jose Aldo
did not.
No. He had fought once at bantamweight.
And lost.
He lost to Marlon Rice.
Now,
I don't care.
We get it.
I get it.
We think he won too, all right? But at the end of the day,
he didn't.
It's a loss. Yeah, exactly.
And he'd only fought once in a division, and I don't know.
And he was ranked 6 or 7.
Was it impressive that he was able to hold his own against Rice?
Yeah.
Yes. Who had also fought for a belt before. Sure, it was impressive. But again, you don't get that win. And it's like, on one hand, I struggle with it so much because I'm like, part of me is glad that if the UFC believes the decision is bullshit, then they'll just book fights as if it's the reverse.
Yeah.
But I guess if he had a resume at fights at bantamweight by that point, or at least a couple more,
then maybe
I would feel more comfortable with it. But at the time, I
hated this.
I was not happy about it, especially when you had a more clear, deserving person in Aljamain Sterling, in my eyes.
100%.
And even Rice at that point, I thought was more deserving, just because he won.
Technically won, yeah.
Regardless, this fight happens. Jose looks great early.
Great fight for 3 rounds.
Yeah, but it was a 5-round fight.
Yeah.
Jose looked great early, and Jan did too, but Jose showing them leg kicks of old.
It was that veteran.
Yeah. I mean, he had his last few fights, he had really not been, he's a guy that's probably got some of the best leg kicks you'll see in MMA history. And he really
wasn't utilizing him much
in the last few fights of his career, but then here, throwing him. Jan is feeling the effects. But Jan is holding his own. Probably even winning the fight still at that point. But Aldo is in the fight. He is landing shots. He's possibly won a round. Round 4 happens. End of round 3. Actually, I think it was the end of round 1 is where Aldo got hurt the first time. He gets dropped. And Jan hits him with the punch in the rib. Mm-hmm. And he immediately turtles up. And you can see his face is in pain. Mm-hmm. So I thought the fight might be stopped. Somehow he fights through, pushes through. Second round, much better for him. Third round, good. Then you get to that 4th and 5th.
It's all Petr Yan.
It's all Yan. And it's
domination.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Should have been stopped earlier than it was.
Should have been stopped in the 4th.
Yeah.
At the end. They shouldn't have let it go into round 5.
Yeah, I mean, it went 3.5 minutes into round 5, so oof.
He took a beating.
He did. And it's really tough because, Aldo is such a beloved veteran and legend of the sport. Possibly a top 10 fighter. You had him on your top 10 list. Mm-hmm. And for him to be just beaten down like that, it just you just didn't feel good watching it,
Yeah.
So you're just kind of throw in the damn towel or something. Come on. This is a legend. I know he's only 32, but again, the fight years versus age.
Well, and I mean, before this, he had still been taking some damage. We're getting 2 TKO losses to Max. Max put a beating on him. So, that's 3 losses in the past couple years that are pretty bad.
So then, finally, the fight stopped in the 5th round, and Petr Yan is your champion. And really, to this point, he hasn't defended yet. It looks like it's going to be him and Sterling.
It was supposed to happen this Saturday.
It's so freaking crazy to forget how many title fights have came through UFC 256. Looks like it's going to happen in the first quarter of 2021. Hopefully it does. But I think there's still... Jan still has some proving to do, I think. Because as good of a win as it is... I mean, you beat a guy like Jose Aldo.
Henry Cejudo and Aljo are calling him the paper champ. So
they're calling him that, and I get it. They're trying to drum up some hype, but at the same time, Aldo is 0-2 at bantamweight. So regardless how you feel, how he's looked, or if he actually won, reality is he's 0-2. So Jan, I think, still has some proving to do as champion, but for this night, it was Russia has its next representative. Mm-hmm. Then we move to this co-main event.
Can we skip this?
I'm going to let you talk about this one.
I don't want to, though. Listen.
Do it for the love of the game.
This is for... Actually, I would say this is for Bless, but it's not because it's him losing. But this was the rematch. Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway. Another 5-round war. This time, however, Noah and I, along with 98.7% of viewers, scored this fight for Max Holloway. And it more than likely was scored 3-2 in most people's heads. However, the judges score the fight for Volkanovski. He gets the very controversial... This was split, right?
Yes.
Gets the controversial split decision. Remains the champion. Again, another champ we haven't seen fight since then. So also excited to see Volkanovski in the octagon. Regardless of how big a fan I am of Max, I realize how great Volkanovski is. So I am excited to see him fight again. Holloway, of course, we get to see in just a matter of weeks at this point against Calvin Kattar. But yeah, this fight hurt. I'm a huge Max Holloway fan. Probably one of my favorite fighters. Close to my favorite fighter, honestly, at number 1 is Max Holloway. And to see him lose his belt the first time was awful because that one he lost, right?
Right.
Yeah, we agree. But this one, man, no. He didn't lose. And it's tough. I'm not trying to be a sore loser. But, I mean, when essentially everyone in the community believes the same thing, then you don't feel as bad when you're making these type of excuses. I put that in quotes. So, a great fight, though. And a great fight to have on this Fight Island card. I won't take that away. Just, if you're a Holloway fan, a poor result. If you're a Volkanovski fan, keep rolling with the punches and right into your next title defense you got.
It was a good fight.
Oh, yeah.
Max dropped Volk twice.
First round and second round.
Neither of them, I would say, like, hurt Volk bad or anything, but it was still, like, it was...
Max looked crispy.
He looked nice.
Yeah.
And Volk came on late in those championship rounds, which is probably... Maybe that doesn't get talked about enough. Now that we've had time to digest this result, I mean, you obviously are still...
bitter.
Which, understandable. I mean, that's your guy, Max Holloway. I like Max, too. I was also upset with the decision. But it was a very close fight. And what I don't think maybe we don't give enough credit to Volkanovski about it was he was winning the championship rounds.
Yeah, he came on strong and got...
Because really, it's the round 3 that's the one that's disputed.
Yeah.
Round
Volk
4,
won 4 and 5.
which I think is, again, I'm not saying he should have won the fight, but I think that at least shows something to his merit as champion, where he is able to go.
I mean, that's what you want. You want your champions to be able to do 5-round wars, and he did it. They both did it. But yeah, for Volk to say, "Oh, I can just get stronger as the fight goes on," that's what you like to see.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to give him some credit here because I know we've probably we've talked pretty down on Volkanovski. I think. I mean, I ranked him last in our champions rankings, and
he's a great guy.
And I put him below people who hadn't defended their belts. So I don't want to say that I just think since he was the only champion to this point who has a defense that, in my opinion, is
a loss
up for debate. I guess Adesanya, Romero.
But then you look at what Adesanya just did to Costa.
Yeah, I mean, because the Adesanya Romero fight, people seem to think there's some people out there that think Romero won that fight. I think
I wouldn't give a win to either.
All
person.
I care about is that we lost in that one. But here, it was very sad to see for Max because you just knew it was like they can't give him a third.
Yeah,
fight.
Just put him in a really weird spot.
Yeah.
And now here he is fighting number 6, Calvin Kattar,
which is a great fight, and I'm excited for it. But yeah, it would have been. I think it kind of soured us a little bit at this point. I think we were. You definitely were a bit pouty after this decision gets announced. I think.
Oh yeah.
And I was probably no different. But that leads us into our main event. And let's just be honest.
Dominance.
This fight didn't really live up.
I will give Jorge credit for being able to last 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Obviously coming in on 6 days' notice. However, Usman doesn't get enough credit for also, he took this fight on 6 days' notice too.
In a lot of ways.
Yes, he was in a training camp. I get that, but...
In a lot of ways, these were the 3 winners, these 3 champions that we had are really all underappreciated in some way.
And poopied on for this card, specifically. But yeah, I mean, Usman deserves more credit for this fight. He dominated the entire fight. Masvidal deserves credit for stepping in, saving the card. And, he did get dominated, but he had his bright moments.
Yeah.
It was clear that when they were at, range and striking, Usman wanted no part of what Masvidal was.
One judge gave Masvidal round 1. And I think that says something, because even though Usman was able to get the fight to the ground, Masvidal was making him uncomfortable on the feet. And Masvidal, this was something I didn't notice when we watched the first time for whatever reason. I think it was because once it kind of became obvious that Masvidal just was gassed, and it just became obvious to me it was going to be Usman winning by decision at some point. I mean, Masvidal's takedown defense was really nice.
It was really good.
Again, 6 days notice, and the fact that he was so tired, he was still able to defend a lot of takedowns. I mean,
worked well in the clinch.
Again, with a guy like Usman, who has the pedigree he has as a wrestler, it's not a matter of if you'll get taken down, but when.
Yeah.
So for Masvidal to, yes, he was being taken down pretty much every round, or at least clinched up, the foot stomps, everybody jokes about it.
Those are brutal.
But he was able to stop a lot of those takedowns, and that's definitely to his credit. And I would like to see this fight down the line if Masvidal gets a nice win.
With full training camps?
Yeah, I would. And maybe this is how the fight was really always going to go. But trust me, I had bought in. I definitely, after what Masvidal had done on his run, I counted him out against Darren Till. I counted him out against Ben Askren, which is embarrassing to say. I thought he would beat Nate Diaz, but to dominate him like he did, and then you get this fight. I said I think Masvidal's winning this fight. I truly believed it was going to be. I mean, they had that weekend unveiled the UFC 4 video game, and it had him and Adesanya on the cover. I said, this is his crowning moment.
Oh, if he would have won this.
Yeah.
Wow. He would be in the UFC's
But
logo.
I guess realistically, this was the way the fight was most likely going to go. And it just, call a spade a spade. It wasn't a particularly exciting fight. But Usman was dominant.
Yep.
And there should be credit given to him for that. But on this night, I can't say I was giving him a ton of credit.
I agree.
I was being a bit pouty about this fight. You had your moment to pout with Holloway. I was being pouty about Masvidal.
It's all right.
But overall,
the first
so
fight
weirdly,
card
so it's
of
like
Fight
it's
Island.
kind of weird looking back because really, if you go again, we talk about the whole fights aren't made on paper; they're made in the octagon. This is kind of an example. Maybe this is a hot take. There are great fights on here, but this is kind of an example of the reverse, where on paper this card was fantastic and some of these fights didn't really live up to expectations, or again, when you get a decision that you feel isn't justified, that definitely sours things. The Jan Aldo fight being stretched out far too long. I mean,
definitely
the
controversy.
women definitely were the winners on that main card. You got the Jiri, Vulcan. There was some other good fights on those prelims, but I'm just saying, I'm not saying it was a bad card. It wasn't, because come on, I mean, look at what you got. But I'm just saying that I think, considering how much this card was hyped up and how we had hyped it up, as far as what we ended up getting by the end of the night, I think it was somewhat of a letdown.
Ooh. I won't go that far.
Okay.
But I see where you're coming from.
I don't want to say, like, I wasn't disappointed when I left your place.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
With all the
I think
hype
considering how we always talk about, people shit on these fight nights and they end up being great. I think this was the reverse, where it was like, on paper, this could have been one of the best pay-per-views ever.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they all have that, but I mean, just the star power on here, the story going in.
Right.
You get that multiple rematches, a fresh new champion at bantamweight. It ended up being a decent card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But a big win for the UFC. They sold over 1 million buys on this.
And Fight Island was born.
And, give credit to Fight Island, give credit to Jorge Masvidal. I think this was kind of proof of his star power.
He saved the card.
Yeah. But
From just being a mediocre buy rate card.
yeah, so this was our moment, right? Fight Island, it's in the book. Now we are here. What's next?
All kinds of things.
We get a lot of fight nights.
Yeah, we've had, 8 more events since 251?
Yeah, and
This stint alone, we get a Wednesday fight card, by the way, which
I
is
love.
so cool.
I love the Wednesday ones.
Calvin Kattar, Danny Ige, great fight. Kattar really coming into his own.
That was
Five-round
a
war.
fight. Ige showed me more than I thought he would.
Yeah. I was very excited watching Ige.
I think Calvin Kattar also. It's like both guys. I thought Kattar was going to win this pretty clearly, and he did. But both guys showed me more than I thought they would. It's kind of in a way. I don't want to say like Vettori Hermanson because I predicted it to be fight of the night, but in a way it was. Like I'm not sure if I thought Vettori or Hermanson was really a title challenger, and after their fight, I thought they kind of both are.
And Ige's a fresh face in the
And
UFC.
Ige was this, and I didn't think Ige had won his fight against Barboza, which gave him this opportunity.
Yeah.
So I was definitely like, all right, Kattar is going to win this fight clearly. He did, but
great fight.
But it was a great fight. Also a fight of the year contender potentially for some people, not necessarily me, but I'm just saying. Kattar looked great. Ige looked good. Tough as shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he got hit with some shots.
I'm excited to see Ige again.
I am too. We haven't heard much about him since, but that was on ESPN. That was a card that was supposed to be co-mained by Frankie Edgar and Pedro Munoz. That ended up headlining one of our first breakdowns.
Yeah.
So then you go to. Sorry, did you want to?
Oh no, I figured we were just going.
Yeah,
off
we're just
the
going.
headliners.
So then we got the fight that we have talked about the most on this podcast.
This is episode 49. This has had to have been mentioned at least 15 different episodes. At least.
Davison Figueiredo and Joseph Benavidez 2. I remember I was at my mom's. Me and my sister were there. And my mom and stepdad were somewhere, but we were like house sitting, whatever. I was watching this on the big TV in the living room, and I about shit my pants.
This was the first card back of me being back in BG, from home, being back up here to work. So I'm watching this, I think at the time on my laptop, actually. And my God, I remember being genuinely concerned for Joseph's health.
When you saw...
It was the eye
I don't want to
glaze.
give too much detail, but when he got put in that guillotine...
Like the fourth one of the fight. Rear naked choke.
Rear naked choke. I'm a filthy casual, aren't I?
Yes, get out of here.
Sorry. The rear naked. And you saw his eyes glaze over, and his body's kind of torqued and twisted. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
I was like, God,
Blood
stop
everywhere.
it. I was screaming at the TV. I was like, stop the fight.
Throw in the damn
Was
towel.
I a bit liquored up? Maybe. But point still stands that was brutally scary. And then a moment that nobody else, I don't think, noticed on the broadcast but me. Because I had the volume up real loud and everything. And I'm sitting there like watching it, like staring at TV like, is he okay? Mm-hmm. He wakes up and lets out a scream.
See, I never heard that.
As soon as he comes to, it's like he had a nightmare.
Yeah.
And he lets out this like blood curling scream, and I was like you just had this like my spine, like
the hairs on the back of your
neck.
neck.
Like I felt this shiver down my spine, and I was like, please never put me in a room with Davis and Figueiredo. But co-main on that card, Jack Hermanson and Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah, that is true.
I just wanted to mention that because Hermanson, that was a weird fight.
Yeah, it was. Poor Kelvin.
There's a lot of questions about Kelvin Gastelum, I think, after that fight.
Yeah.
He was kind of caught in a heel hook, got out of it, somehow put himself right back in that position, and Hermanson's like, fool me once. Shame on shame on me, or shame on you.
Yeah, it would be shame on me because he got it the second time.
No.
I mean, the saying is shame on you, but technically Hermanson should say shame on me because I didn't finish it the first time, but I finished it the second time.
Yeah, so Hermanson gets to win.
Yeah.
And then he just headlined a card with Vettori, so he...
And I'll fight of the year contender.
Yeah, so he, that was a fight I counted him out of.
Then it leads us into another fight of the year contender, in my opinion. In terms of beautiful striking.
Which is?
The following Saturday, Robert Whittaker, Darren Till, 25 minutes of just beautiful, technical, crisp striking. Just wonderful. And this is big for Rob.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just wanted to make note. I believe this is the card that broke the record for the most fights on a single card.
Oh, it may have been, actually.
Because...
Count them up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8 prelim fights?
Mm-hmm. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Wow. 15 fights on the entire card.
Yeah.
Wild.
And, again, this is probably at the peak of our... I don't know if I want to say of our buying in, maybe? Like, I think after this card... In my head, I had it. Nothing can stop the UFC. I said this on one of our previous episodes.
Yeah, I mean, this would have been 4 boom, boom, boom consecutive successful events.
Hit it with at the end, like you hit that. You are not only are you holding all these fights during COVID-19, but you're breaking records for the amount of fights on these cards
and putting on great fights.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Go ahead and talk about Robert because I just wanted to say that like that was probably. For both of us, because think about it. 2 weeks after this, what did we do?
Started a podcast.
If we had any doubt of the UFC's ability to keep holding fights, we might have waited.
Yeah, true.
Like if we had been together during when they re-announced 249, we would have been probably still talking about potentially doing it at that time.
But skeptical.
But then you're skeptical, and then you see Jacare test positive, so then you go, I don't know if we want to start it yet, because what if we can't really do consistent content, you know? But after this card, I think this was where I was, in my head, I was like, there's no doubt that the UFC is here to stay throughout this pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. And this was just a huge fight. This was big because it was Robert's bounce back fight.
Yeah.
Coming off of his loss to Israel Adesanya, took a big layoff. Said he kind of lost that passion. For Till, this is a big one for him because prior to this, he had beaten Kelvin, right, in his debut at middleweight, which was a iffy fight. Was that a split decision?
It was, but
I thought Till won.
Easily won that fight.
Not a lot going on.
It wasn't. It was definitely like a point. It was one of his performances where he just kind of
point fighting.
Yeah, I mean Kelvin couldn't match the striking of Till, and that's why. And Gaslam couldn't get the fight to the ground. Mm-hmm. It was impressive for Till because you didn't know how he would do against some of these bigger guys, but Kelvin's not even a big middleweight, so it answered some questions. But I think people are still even to this day. I think people wonder how good truly is Darren Till, including myself.
Yeah, and I mean he put on a great performance here, but Robert really came back into his all. This Robert Whittaker 2.0.
Do you remember leading in here? A lot of people didn't know if Robert was ever going to be the same.
Yeah.
I was kind of skeptical too because you had those two wars with Yoel Romero.
Then knocked out by Izzy.
And then he was beaten so easily.
Does he still have the chin?
Yeah.
You know?
And then, I mean, even at a point, Till
dropped him in this fight.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to say that that's still a question because then because Robert after this would fight Cannonier in a great fight, but also a fight he got hurt in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe that question is still there, but as far as the question of is Whittaker still a title challenger? Oh, yeah.
Whittaker 2.0.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at his striking in this fight, he was going tit for tat with Darren Till.
Yeah, Till is looked at as one of the best strikers in the entire UFC.
And one of the most patient.
Yes.
And Whittaker is never really shown to be a guy that's
and that's all what 2.0 Whittaker is. Yeah. Patience.
And
picking the shots and delivering, too.
And I think it's also worth noting that we probably should have touched on this from I believe it was from Figgy Benavidez, too. This is where the story of Khamzat Chimaev comes into play because on this card he was put on the main card against Rice McKee.
Yep.
And the story continued because he looked so dominant against John Phillips, but John Phillips is a guy who I believe at this point his record in the UFC is 2-6,
something like that.
Now he lost to Khamzat. He lost a fight since then, so he was like 2-4 at the time. But again, I believe John Phillips got one shot on him.
Yeah. Well, Khamzat's only been hit 3 times.
And Khamzat said that he wanted to fight in the next week. And I'm just going to say that this is the moment where since then we have, all these guys, and I'm not saying that it's because of Khamzat.
Everybody been
But all of a sudden, all these, hungry guys wanting to make the name for themselves. They're fighting
Kevin Holland.
Every couple weeks.
Who we get to
every
see Saturday.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Every month. You haven't seen that really ever.
Not this much. No. Not by this many fighters.
Yeah. And Khamzat, Rice McKee does not land a single strike in this fight.
Yeah, and I picked McKee to win. So.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Listen, Khamzat was still new, okay?
I mean, I bet money.
I bought into the hype of McKee.
If you remember, I bet on McKee.
Oh, was this one of your parlays, huh?
Yeah. And you gave me money for...
Oh.
I think you did. Yeah, you gave me... You're like, yo, I'm going in on that. And then at the first fight, done.
This is why we're not a betting podcast.
Yep. Exactly. But I didn't think Rice McKee was actually going to win, but he was such an underdog that I knew he's a good prospect out of the UK.
Yeah, we were wrong.
We were wrong. But this ended up being, that's where the story of him starts. He fights twice in a week. And now look at him.
Then he one-punch KOs Gerald Meerchart in 13 seconds, and now he's about to
he will be probably headlining the card in January.
Yeah, with the number 3 ranked welterweight in the world, Leon Edwards.
It's crazy.
Hums that smish.
Yes, he does. And you even had Alexander Gustafsson's debut at heavyweight.
That didn't go well.
What a disappointing affair,
yes,
right?
That was awful.
Fabricio on his way out says...
Fabricio looked good, though, in that fight.
Yeah, and now he's with the PFL.
Yep, he is.
He got the armbar submission, and I mean...
And he said...
Deuces. It's like that meme of that guy putting up the deuces and he fades away. But this was a great card. I mean, yeah, the headline by Whitaker Till. The fact that you got 15 fights. That was such... Man, I was like exhausted at the end.
Yeah, man. And that is our first stint on Fight Island. 4 events. And what was it? Let's see. 25th, 18th, 15th, 11th. 4 events in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Insane amount of fights. Great fights. Mediocre fights. Bad scores. Tears. Blood. Sweat. We saw it all on Fight Island.
We really did.
And from there, you really just... Another takeaway, I guess, after the Whitaker Till, outside of, the UFC can do this. We knew that Fight Island was here to stay.
Yeah.
For the long haul. Not just for 2020. I mean, it's here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's already part of this partnership that the UFC has with Abu Dhabi and the UAE. Anyways, brand new arena built over there now, holds 10,000 people. They're even thinking about doing Conor and Poirier there with people. So, Fight Island, the story of Fight Island, although it was at its peak in 2020, and that will never change, it is a story that has many chapters yet to come.
That's that, and I think we touched on that when we talked about this in the documentary, but that is a very true point. I mean, regardless, I guess, of how long this pandemic goes, I wonder, like, let's imagine, let's say, this is all hypothetical, and this is not really what I am predicting. I'm just putting it out there.
You sure you want to put this into the atmosphere?
All right, fine. Let's just say that there comes a time in 2021 where the barriers have been lifted. Everybody's allowed to run into the streets. And
Fight Island will be like a historical landmark for people to visit.
And well, I'm not saying that.
I'm trying to go.
Well,
Anchor.
Book a flight.
Anyways.
But I'm wondering if once there comes a time where the UFC can go back to doing their shows, like the pay-per-views in the United States, anywhere, like how they were before,
a normal, yeah.
Will they still go back?
I would go a lot.
I mean, they're already talking about fans, pool parties, concerts.
Yeah.
Huh?
Hey, Dana.
So it's so I'll be interested to see how that goes. I think, and I think that'll be that next chapter you're talking about, where it's like, okay, let's see how this format, this Fight Island, how can it be sustained in a post-COVID world?
Yeah, I mean,
once it comes to that, if it ever comes to that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we had the stint number 1 that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're not going to go in depth on the second stint because we've already broken all those down.
But stint number 2, you had 2 pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean, we had Adesanya Costa, Holm Aldana, Marai Sandhagen, Ortega and Korean Zombie, and then Habib Gaethje. They went huge on Fight Island. I mean, massive fights.
I mean, that Habib Gaethje card is one of the best, not just on paper, but as far as like
outcome and the card, how it played out.
One of the best cards I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Truly from
top to bottom too. Yeah.
Fantastic card, and like to your now here we are. We're about to go back in about a month. It looks like to Fight Island. It looks like they'll probably start with McGregor Poirier, or maybe they'll do the fight night before. They're talking about doing a Wednesday and a Saturday and all.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they just start because there's nothing before the 16th.
Right.
Holloway Cater. So I think they just boom Cater Holloway, Fight Island.
Yeah, and I think what's going to make it more prevalent or more of a need for the UFC to continue going there is the problems they've been having in Vegas.
Oh, I mean, hell, they might have to stay there.
Because right now, these problems they're having in Vegas
it's been getting
bad. It's adding up.
Yeah, it's been getting bad.
We've had, at this point, I want to say 6 or 7 straight main events either scrapped entirely, or at least one fighter has had to be taken off.
And other fights from the card, prelim fights, main card.
I mean, we had 3 alone just
this past Saturday.
We just said they broke a record with 15. We just had an 8 fight card, or
8 fights.
8 fight card on Saturday.
2 of which were supposed to be on the main card, 1 on the prelims.
Yeah.
So
3 big fights. I mean, Jimmy Flick on the prelims, and you had 2 of our main card fights being scrapped, including the one that could have been. You had like 2 big prospects.
Mm-hmm.
Nate Landwehr is the
Yep.
one that's sticking out to me. I can't. Movsar.
Movsar 13-0. Yep.
Yeah, so big fights being taken off, but obviously the main events of these fight nights are the ones that stick out more. And for the most part, the UFC had not had a ton of problems with their main events falling out due to COVID. I mean, you had your times. You know, people were shitting on Angela Hill and Michelle Waterson when they headlined a card.
Shame on you.
Yep, shame on you. But that was because I forget what the original. Actually, that was Glover and Tiago.
Yes, that was the first one.
And that was COVID. So you've had fights compromised because of it, but now you're at a point where it's like every week it's like.
So there's.
We're sitting here hoping and praying that nothing happens in 256 before we get there.
There's already been 3 fights canceled off of it.
Yeah.
Luckily, all preliminary. Not that that's bad. Obviously, that sucks. Hopefully, they all get better soon. Can fight in January, but you get my point.
Yeah, we as selfish fight fans, we know the fights that we're hoping are.
I mean, right now this main card is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you take off one of those top 2, oof, what a that's what I'm getting at, right? That's really what we're talking about here. But yeah, it's so funny that as big of a story as Fight Island is 2020, and it will probably never. I don't want to say never, but probably the biggest you'll ever see.
This was the peak.
You'll probably never see it be any bigger. Just, I mean, all the factors in play.
I think now it will just be a thing where
it's sustained at this point. I mean, it's here to stay. But I'll be interested if maybe at 2021 we look back in a year in a review and see what, like, did we spend all of 2021 on Fight Island? Like, all of that's plausible at this point.
Yeah.
Because it was by far a huge success for them.
Everything that, like, from start to finish, Fight Island, all the, like, really, if you haven't watched the documentary, by the way, on ESPN Plus, you need to watch it, first off. But, like, all the people over there that quarantined for a month and did all this, and then all the people from the UFC going over there, like, everything. I can't even imagine the logistical and operational tasks that they had to complete, and it was all flawless.
Yeah.
You know? Shout out to freaking Fight Island. The myth, the legend, I didn't want to say the man because it's like a thing.
Yeah.
But the myth, the legend, the story. It literally took the entire sports world by storm.
Flipped it on
at one point. Yeah. The UFC was at the peak of all sports in 2020. Peak.
They were the first ones back.
The guys that punch each other, the human cockfighting, quote, was on the top of all sports in 2020. Again, we talked about this. It's the silver lining for the UFC. This is one of the best years they could have ever asked for in terms of their brand and their, all this merchandise and all the fights and showing that they are going to be the sport that comes back first, that show this is what you need to do to put on fights or put on events and run them successfully. And they did that, and they showed everybody that.
I couldn't have
and
said
then all the sports followed suit.
I couldn't have said any better myself.
Fight Island.
I think this was warranted. When you're doing a year in review,
we even wanted to talk about it forever.
Yeah, I mean, you dedicate an episode to Fight Island. I mean, that's just
have to.
How big of a topic it was in 2020. I keep saying it, but it was the biggest overarching MMA, and you'll respond with sports in general storyline that we saw play out. It was the biggest addition to sports in 2020.
One of the biggest additions ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
This was like the Rumble in the Jungle, back in the day with Ali.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. Undisclosed location.
Yeah.
They're going to fight each other, And it's wild. And yeah, I mean, how do you not give this its own special episode? Because if we put this with all the other stuff we're going to do, next special episode, we'd have like a 5-hour long thing. Yeah. So it was much deserved. And I'm just glad we got to sit down and talk about it.
I know. We've been wanting to talk about those cards, especially on
we started the podcast just 3.5 weeks too late. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because here we are now.
I think we did it justice. I think we've said some of
our
what...
piece.
Yeah, I mean... We didn't even touch on some of these guys, some of these other guys that made such huge names. I mean, we talked about.
Oh,
Hamza a
we
little
could
bit.
go on and on and on.
I mean, because some of these guys, it's hard to.
We're
tell
talking there
because
were
you're
9
talking-
events.
They're bouncing back and forth between Fight Island and the Apex. I mean, you had Bobby Green making a big name for himself, but all in the Apex.
Yeah.
Then you have guys like Kevin Holland, who have became huge names just by staying active.
Yeah.
So it's very just the whole year's just been interesting and it's exciting. It's scary at the same time because where we're at now, hopefully we're just hoping they kind of stay at Fight Island.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we did this justice, and it feels like the monkey's off our back in some way because we've been wanting to do this for so long. But that's going to wrap up our 2020 year in review, part 1. And obviously, I believe it is Wednesday, December 23rd, you'll be seeing part 2 of this, and that's going to be our year-end rewards, or our year-end awards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Our
so.
2020 awards.
We're wearing tuxedos. We're getting trophies made, and we're gonna mail them to the fighters. We got to get in contact with their management.
Yeah,
and all that
of course,
stuff.
of course. But that shouldn't be a problem for us.
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially the biggest MMA award show there is. So you're gonna want to tune in for that in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're taking the MMA world by storm, essentially here.
Fight of the night, or fight of the year.
Yes.
Fighter of the year.
I already know what that is. I can tell them now. Anyway, go ahead.
Fighter of the year.
Yep. This is where you get a little
most
nutty
most
on
surprising
Yeah.
fighter of the year, most surprising fight of the year, most disappointing fighter of the year, most disappointing fight of the year.
and whatever other awards we may think of in the next 2
Maybe
weeks.
knockout of the year.
Yeah.
Maybe submission of the year.
Oh, wait, yeah. Was that not on the original agenda? Oh, I think we have to.
Okay.
Yeah, add those.
Okay.
There's 2 more.
I just was throwing out some.
Saddle up, ladies and gentlemen. We can't wait. It's going to be so fun.
You won't be able to see us. We'll be wearing tuxedos.
Yeah.
Just believe us.
Trophy case in the back.
Yeah.
You know.
But very excited to do that. That'll be coming on the 23rd. As for the rest of this week,
Oh, there's still so much.
we obviously have an announcement coming on Thursday. We've played that up a lot. Follow us on our Below Average Joe's social media in order to get that announcement that's coming on our Instagram and Twitter.
Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Nice, getting that time out there. You can follow us at BAJ_MMA podcast. I know Dom will plug it when we do our outro here, but I just wanted to throw that in there to follow us there because we're not going to do what we did our last announcement where we posted
That
a
was
video.
just too much. We had to put it in a video because there was so much going
but
on.
now go to the social media, follow us there. That way you'll get that announcement. Sure, we'll talk about it on Friday, but the point of posting it there is that we get it out there and we don't necessarily have to sit here for 30 minutes and talk about.
Our announcement Thursday plays a big factor in our Friday preview.
Yeah,
That's a nice little extra bonus tease.
I think it does.
Yeah.
And that leads us into Friday. We are previewing UFC 256 headlined Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno fighting after they last both fought 3 weeks ago.
Stay together.
And then co-main, Tony Ferguson, Charles Oliveira.
Please.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
Yeah,
Stay together.
I'm fingers crossed.
Listen, I love Figgy. And even Moreno after his performance, but come on. Ferguson, Oliveira. Oh,
They know who the A side is.
oh man.
No, but and along with some other great fights on that main card,
And a couple good prelims, too.
Kevin Holland, Jacare
Yeah.
Souza,
Yeah.
among others. So we'll be talking about all the main card and anything that sticks out to us.
Yep.
But then Monday we'll obviously review and recap what happens on Saturday. That's what you have to look forward to. It's a big week. Saddle up. But Dom,
Yeehaw.
tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
Twitter, Instagram at DSalee14. Our podcast on Twitter and Instagram at BAJ_MMA podcast. Again, you're going to want to follow those especially. We're going to have the announcement obviously on our personals as well, so follow us too. But follow the podcast. That's where we tweet out and post all of our episodes there. We do polls on Twitter, fight official results on Twitter, all that fun stuff. We're trying to interact with the MMA
Yeah.
Twitter big community out there.
Big community.
Big community.
Untapped potential.
Yeah, so it's just fun interacting with people. You can interact a lot more on Twitter than Instagram, you know?
It's easier.
So follow us on there. Again, huge announcement coming, I guess, tomorrow when you all are hearing this. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard, Thursday night.
Thursday. As for me, if you go to my bio on Twitter or Instagram, at @ntbaker_, you'll be taken to our link tree, which gives you links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with our social medias. So the Instagram, the Twitter, the YouTube channel, the Anchor page, along with Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts. They're all on there. And there's a link if you want to become a supporter of the podcast. That just provides us with a few dollars a month. All that money just goes back into improving the quality of the podcast, whether it be the audio equipment or down the line doing a video podcast. So again, you can find all of that if you go to my bio on Twitter or Instagram at @ntbaker_. But with that, we're out, and we're going to see y'all on Friday. Unless it's the announcement then Thursday.
Now let's go to the beach.